Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the show. Today, we are launching a whole new series that I'm really, really excited about. And it has a lot of different purposes behind it. As you can see, I have my guest, Allison Bridges, and she is a client of mine and a beautiful person inside and out. And I'm bringing her on for this series because this series is really about highlighting the journey of healing from the moment you decide you want to change something to the turbulence or resistance you might face along the way to the way that the healing journey pays off and why using different outside of the box modalities and methods can really be a game changer in your life. So this is about the story in the individual's own words and their unique story, giving them a platform to really share that. And the purpose is hopefully something resonates with you, with somebody else's journey where you can say, that's me. I felt that way. Like I've been in that position. I've went through that thing because one of the hardest things to do is to be in a broken spot, a depressed spot, a spot where you're dealing with anxiety or you've just been through a lot and it feels like there's no way out. And sometimes the most powerful thing we can hear is somebody else's story and journey to give us hope and to say, okay, if they can do it, I can do it and get you moving forward. So these stories are going to be really inspiring. They're going to show you what's possible, what can really happen with the right healing and the right tools. And I am just so excited to bring Allison on to have her share her story and for you to hear it in her words as we go through this process. So, Allison, welcome. I'm just so ready to dive in and to do a
Yeah,
recap on your story. Obviously, I've been in it with you.
yeah,
This is such a beautiful way for us to just recap. I know you know from working with me that like one of my main roles in my work is to hold the mirror up and show people their
yeah.
wins and show them things in ways you can't quite see when you're in your own life. And celebrating your wins and your progress is like the further we get in the journey, the more that's like my job. It's like, hey, by the way, like high five, you just did this thing. Hey, that's really awesome. Congrats.
Yeah.
So I think this process is just as much a part of the therapeutic journey as anything else we've done. So to kind of just give everybody a little bit of an idea of who you are and what your background is, I would love to just give you the floor and kind of do an intro and then what led you to the point where you decided like something needs to change, like I've got to do things differently and pulling the trigger on starting this process with doing the Satori method with me.
Yeah. So if you know me, I'm a serial overachiever. I guess I'll give myself that label. But most of, my background has been in more of like C-suite positions, consulting, working directly for either the owner of the company or whatnot, which has taught me so much. But as we continue to talk, we'll unravel some of these things too. But, been married for 14-ish years to my best friend. I have two children, Aubrey and Kaden, 11, 14. So navigating a little bit through how to be a middle school mom right now. But yeah, I'm realizing even like going through this process, like how simple things are to me and really what drives me is freedom. And I think a lot of the things that I love to do really are just parts of that. So, taking a quick walk, being in the sun and being able just to kind of sit with myself for a little bit. Like those things that I love really are just so simple. So I guess I'm a pretty boring person.
Boring and freedom are, honestly, that's something we talk about a lot in the process, especially when you're used to chaos and stress and trauma and anxiety. And there's always this point where the restlessness pops up. And I have to, again, be that mirror to people and say, when you're used to that level of stress or anxiety or chaos, when things start to calm down and you start to get really clear and intentional, it actually feels a little boring at first. So it's funny to mention that, but that is actually a part of the process. But I don't think freedom and clarity and peace and purpose are boring. They just, I guess sometimes it depends on who you're talking to, right?
Yeah, well, I think too for me, I mean, you and I talked about this too. Like, uh, I think because I've been used to just constant chaos and friction and putting out fires that weren't really fires for people and putting all of that first, it has been really nice to remove all of that and not feel all that chaos. But, I'm kind of sitting in this spot and have been for a little while where I'm like, well, where is that? And our talk actually this week was so nice because I realized things are so simple now because I did the work to make things simple and free and clear. And so, that reminder from you, I needed so much. Like I have it actually on my desktop right now.
Yeah, I love it. So let's dive into we are basically on our second cycle. And so for those of you who aren't familiar, the Satori method is this 90-day like transformational journey that I take people through. It's my signature method that I created from 20 years of studying the mind, the body, psychology, brain based modalities relevant to healing trauma, creating success and health, mental and physical health. And so I pull upon a lot of different modalities, but I infused everything from all of these different fields of science and psychology and personal development into this fluid process. And so sometimes people go through one phase, it's 90 days. Oftentimes they'll go through multiples because we just keep building and it keeps compounding. So I just wanted to explain that. And yeah, Allison is on, I think, week 2 of her second phase. She did the initial 90 days, which is often about getting people out of the chaos, like out of the hurricane, I call it, to dry land, getting stable, getting clear, and like breathing, right? And getting comfortable with that. We do that by building nervous system capacity while also working on the subconscious mind, our belief systems, our brain pathways, and these automatic kind of chaotic responses. And then, of course, just really anchoring into those beliefs and creating capacity in the nervous system. So it's the first 90 days is just like insane how transformational it is. But then we go through deeper and deeper layers, which Alice and I are now kind of venturing into more of the business side. And it's really an incredible process. So that's what the process is. That's what she's gone through one journey of and is on her second now. And so, what was that moment, that first week before our first session? I remember a lot of the details, but I want to give you the opportunity to kind of time travel for a minute and just go back and describe where you were mentally, physically, and what life was like for you.
Oh my goodness. I mean, I think first and foremost, I mean, chaotic is a really great word, but because I always seem so calm on the outside, because I have really trained myself to act in that manner, not healthy, but everything was chaotic underneath the surface. And what that looked like for me, I mean, I was not even being able to like get a full breath in sometimes from just anxiety that I had internalized. I booked a massage and the massage therapist told me how just the extremity of like the tenseness in my shoulders from just constantly feeling like almost in protection mode. I mean, I mean, I have to like tell myself to not do that. I think other things, I was having like mini panic attacks. I had a very, very traumatic vomiting kind of panic attack, which had never happened, to me before. It was more so the more minor where I would catch myself. I'd say too is I just was blocking so many things out. Anything that I felt would maybe cause me harm, I wasn't even able to complete. And that really hard, especially in relation to business, because in the roles that I've been in and things of that nature, being a business owner, all of that, that's just not really an option. And I found myself not even being able to complete the simplest of tasks. Like my husband would say, even like from the home side, hey, can you call and pay the water bill? Like that's just a stupid example. But I was like fighting simple tasks like that because I just, working with you, I realized I just actually I didn't have the capacity to do that, which seems so crazy to say out loud and a little embarrassing to say out loud, but I was getting really it was to that point, and I remember even just starting with you, like, you had to keep telling me to do things. It was like, "Allison, complete your inventory report. Allison, make sure you're filling out your tool worksheet," and little things like that I would even avoid, and now I'm realizing that it was all because I just couldn't handle anything else. Like, I literally could not handle anything else. So, I mean, the first session, I mean, I'm not a crier. Anyone that may be listening or watching that knows me, I'm very what you see is what you get, very consistent personality on the outside and how I treat people. And I think I cried the entire hour. I feel like actually, but even allowing myself to do that was a step in the right direction, in my opinion, because I think that was really one of the only sessions that I got to that because then I started, being able to logically work through these things and with the help of the tools and then also the questions that you would ask me and how you would actually hold me accountable for things. I really like needed that because I was practicing so much avoidance.
Yeah. And that's such a common thing for the starting phase. When people come on board with me, they're coming on board because they are in a very rough spot. They are dealing with so much trauma and so much dysregulation. So I have to always find this perfect balance of push, the nudge, without
Mhm.
it being like this beat you over the head, because I know what it's like when you're beyond capacity and you're drowning.
Yeah.
Then I understand that process. And it's just this gentle moving forward. Before we got on this call, I pulled up your phase one.
Yeah.
And for anyone listening, I use metrics. Like metrics are a huge part of the way that I track progress. And I get people to tune in with what's happening inside their body, what's happening inside their nervous system and their mind. The thing with traditional talk therapy is you talk about a bunch of things and then it's like maybe
Yeah.
1 or 2 weeks before you go back. You don't have any tangibles. You're not actually looking at the where the needle is and what the numbers are. And I think that that's a huge element that's missing
Yeah.
and what makes my work unique and special. And so we track everything.
Yeah.
I don't know if you remember, I mean, you did just describe
Uh,
it kind of in your personal words, but the max number for psychological mental symptoms is 200. Probably 95% of people come in at like a 175 or above. So they're literally in that like very, very high percentile. Your starting number was 187, right? Like you had 13 points before it was just like, it doesn't get any worse than this. And then your physical was 114. So it's important to recognize this as not only is that how a lot of people start this work, but by the second week, your number that was 187 was 77. That's how quickly things can
yeah.
change from a single session feeling safe and heard and seen and understood and saying, like, I've got support now and I've got tools and I can start moving forward. And your physical symptoms went from 114 to 72. And then as it went down, it was 187, 77, 61, 55, 35, down to
Mhm.
22.
Mhm.
22, like below 50 is
Yeah.
kind of that's normal life. We're going
Yeah.
to get flared and everything. But I want to just speak to that because again, we can hear it in like the personal words of I'm
Yeah.
drowning, I'm overwhelmed, I'm shut down, like you described. I'm calm on the surface, but behind the surface, like it literally feels like I'm falling apart. This is such a common thing, especially for female CEOs and entrepreneurs and people in these high level, high pressure situations.
Yeah.
You have to create this like stoic outer layer, and then everything behind just feels like it's a pressure cooker about to explode. And if you think about the way you described that panic attack, and I think we even went over this,
Yeah.
there's nothing that is more of a visceral body-based response of rejection than literally throwing up. It's like I
Yeah.
cannot actually
Yeah.
hold anything else, so I have to purge this from me.
Yeah.
That is the point that I don't want anyone to ever see, but I want to just emphasize that even if it's that bad, even if it's like 187, all the pressure on the surface, you've got the success, you've got all of these things, but you feel like behind the doors, you're like a different person. That's so common. And I just think that that's worth mentioning because I think something that holds people back from this is it's really scary to let that facade down. It's really
Um,
scary when you're used to, okay, on the surface, everyone thinks I'm like top notch, put it together. And now I got to soften and be vulnerable and crack open and go through all of this stuff. And so
yeah.
I want to ask you, because sometimes people think that that is this really scary, just horrible experience that they have to go through their, every bad thing that's happened to them. I want you to kind of describe what it was like
Mhm.
to start cracking open and what it felt like if you can remember that first week of, okay, ground zero, here's where we're at. The numbers are bad, things are not good, but I'm starting to heal. What did that feel like for you? And was it scary and overwhelming and just
Um, uh, you know, I don't know. I think I was so ready that maybe I don't know that overwhelming would be the word. I think that first of all, with all the questions that you asked for intake, it was extremely thorough and very detailed. And I'm not someone that just dumps on everybody. I'm the person that everyone goes to for solutions in personal, professional, family. And so I think that that's maybe why I always felt the need to always be so strong and show up, consistent for the people I care about, which isn't a bad quality, but I think when I was filling all of that paperwork out, like telling things and explaining them in a safe place was really great because while I have, communicated and talked through with my husband with some of these things, you need someone that actually understands like the basis of where those things come from so that you can find a solution. So when I say I'm not someone that, just will call and complain for, I don't like that. And
Yeah.
so I think that this was a responsible way for me to know that if I said these things, I was going to get X out of it, which was my dream outcome, which is the peace and the clarity and a level of productivity that is responsible and comes from being just very clear, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And so I think like one reason I never I probably should have, I wish I would have done this years and years ago, and who knows where I would be now, but everything happens for a reason. And so I think that one thing that stood out and why I never did therapy before is I didn't want to just sit in someone's office and just complain for an hour. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Like that to me is like not being productive.
Yeah.
And it's not solution oriented, which is how I am.
Yeah.
And so I think for you, and when you explain things, I was kind of, okay, so I said all these things. These are here and they're in a safe place with someone that I believe, can actually help and wants to help. And then we're doing X, Y, and Z to make sure that we're getting over that hoop or hurdle.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Oh, that would be hurdle.
Yeah, basketball tryouts for next week. So that's
Yeah.
fine. Sure. But,
Yeah.
anyways, I think that that was kind of the main thing, and, I felt I mean, I've had other people reach out to me. I've followed other people on Instagram, and I went to a couple events and kind of, like, saw what you had to say and sat on it for a little bit and just realized that it was a good fit, kind of because of your background and because of your niche as well. I felt very much like, okay, this is the solution to my problem, not, I'm going to show up every week and just talk about, whatever I'm feeling. But
Yeah.
and we do that a little bit, but it's always like this is what we're going to do about it to get you, further ahead.
Yeah. Yeah. And everything that I've created in my practice has been
Mhm.
what I needed because as
Yeah.
someone who's type A and driven and who really understands and loves that dynamic of being an entrepreneur, I was an athlete for many, many years. That's what makes me feel alive. But it's
Yeah.
such a fine balance of am I driving and pushing and that boiling point is happening underneath and I'm disassociated. I can't be present. Like there's so many things that happen behind the scenes with that dysregulation. And then there's this whole movement that says just slow down and relax and kumbaya and meditate and talk about your problems and soft girl era. And sometimes, maybe for a little bit of the time, we can do that. But a
Yeah.
lot of women that I resonate with, because again, they're very similar to me, that's not actually what we want. We want to be that high performance
Yeah.
human and move forward and create things. We just
Yeah.
don't want it to be at the sacrifice of our mental health and our physical health and to be having violent panic attacks because we're holding it together.
Yeah.
The body is always kind of keeping the score in that way. And so I think that's important as well because I went and spent years in talk therapy, and all it did was traumatize me more. All it did was make me feel worse and worse. There was never any solutions. And I'm so glad you brought up that point because, again, I think a lot of women listening or men are like, what is the point of going and talking about your problems? That doesn't register as anything that's going to get you anywhere. And for a lot of talk therapy situations, it doesn't. It actually just brings it to the surface, stirs it up like muddy water, and then you've got to spend a week kind of getting out of your head, and then you're just stuffing it back down. And that actually can create more dysregulation. When
Yeah.
you bring emotions to the surface and you talk about them, and then there's no solution and you didn't do anything to discharge them or release them from the body, your body says, well, that was terrible and awful. So what does it do? It tightens the lid tighter. It says,
Mhm.
let's not
Yeah.
do that again. And so talk therapy can be re-traumatizing like that. And it can
Yeah.
perpetuate the issues and people get further and further away from healing. So I just love that you shared that because I know a lot of people are thinking that like, what's the point? I'm
Yeah.
gonna talk about my problems. Maybe I have a few epiphanies of my childhood was awful or this thing was traumatic. but then what? But then what?
Yeah.
And a lot of people that come to this work have spent decades often in talk therapy, and they're
Mhm.
like, I think I feel a little better, I think, but I'm not moving forward. I'm not actually changing and growing. And that's where the metrics come in. So I love that you highlighted that.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I mean, I think that the other part of it is like I don't get into, the victim mentality. You know what I mean? Like things happen and things suck and they may not be your fault, but it's still your responsibility. And I mentioned the word responsible a few times in answering your last question. And I think it's responsible to do work like this because you're keeping yourself the best version that you can be, especially if you're a leader. There's so many people that look up and, depend on you and as a mom and as a wife and all the other business owner, all those different things. It's actually your responsibility to make sure that, you're showing up in a great way because it's honestly just a domino effect from a leadership perspective, from a family perspective, all those different things. And if you don't have any idea how to like reconnect and change the pathways and all those different things that we've been working on, then you're at some point, something's going to hit the fan and it's going to be
Yeah.
a disaster. And I think I got to that point, but here, the thing that I tell myself instead of being like, man, I should have done this sooner, like, yes, but you also could have done it later. And what did
Yeah.
that look like?
Yeah.
And I don't really want to know. I never want to go down that road or like see what that looks like because I think for me when I started, I think like one of the things I didn't mention when I started is I started to feel, I'm very intuitive. I can read people really well. I'm very self-aware. Those are nice standy qualities, but I got to the point where I was like, I don't even know what's real and what's not. Like I don't know that I can right now show up and trust my intuition, which is my biggest superpower.
Yeah.
Like, that was kind of taken away from me in a way, but even doing the work, I'm realizing that a lot of what happened was my fault because I didn't take the responsible path earlier, if that makes
Yeah.
so, like, I caused a lot of the problems that I had from, previous traumas, and then removing all that and cleaning that up allows me to be very in control of my life, and I said freedom earlier. And that's, that freedom is being in control of your life. And it doesn't just mean, oh, I don't work a 9 to 5. And that's what you see online.
Yeah.
Literally being able to, like, today after this, I'm going to sit at my son's baseball game. It's actually me being able to be present at my son's baseball game, not panicking when I get a text message or worrying about the email that I got. It's the ability to not even check my email and feel like that's okay. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? And that's all I've ever been looking for. And it sounds so simple, but I know that there's so many people that don't show up that way because I did it most of my life.
Yeah. I mean, it's really the fundamentals of trauma and how the brain and the nervous system get shaped, where you have this bucket of capacity of the things you can handle. And all these things we collect, we collect, we collect, and it's
Mm,
overflowing. And when it's overflowing, your SOS is like always on. Like the alarm bells are always on. You don't sleep well, you don't focus. That
yeah.
fragmentation, that I don't know what's real and what's not, happens because your
Yeah.
systems are so depleted and so exhausted that it just blurs together. It's like we've tried to keep you safe from this threat for so long. And eventually the threat system is like, okay, well, we're only supposed to be on from time to time, not 24/7 for 30, 40, 50 years, you know?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so those
It-
symptoms, there's so many things that people don't think about are connected to trauma. But if they start with me and they go through this intake, like you said, it's very thorough because I
Mhm.
want to know every single part that is affected. And it is not just like our mental cognition of, oh, I went through this hard thing and oh, I'm really tired because I'm stressed. There's not a cell of your body or a function of your life, whether it's family, leadership, hormonal, every single part of your physiology and your mental and physical existence is impacted by the stress that's in that bucket in your nervous system and brain. And when you start to offload that, like people feel like they're coming back to life. They
Yeah.
didn't even know how disassociated they were or how disconnected. Again, like you said, there's this like, I feel like I wake up and I drink my coffee and I go to work and I get things done and I pick up the kids. but like I'm not actually experiencing it.
Yeah.
They feel like an outsider viewing their life. And then
Yeah.
the inside, if they do connect in, it's so painful and it's so overwhelming. Well, let me just disassociate because this is not a safe place. So
Yeah.
creating that safety in the body where it feels safe to slow down and safe to go and watch your kids game and safe to do all of these things. It just can't be overstated how much it changes every part of your life. And that's why I'm so obsessed with this work.
Yeah.
It's yes, I work with CEOs and this certain kind of avatar in a way, but I work with a wide range of people. They're moms, they're people that are doing so much in so many different realms. And it's like you said, it's the responsible thing to do to take care of
Yeah.
you first. You are your nervous system, and your nervous system is actually communicating with all the nervous systems around you, whether that is your family or your team or whatever. And that's why I love working with either the mom or the CEO, like that center unit, because when that person changes, everything in her orbit
Yeah.
changes. And that's the coolest part about it.
Yeah.
I want to ask you, what do you feel like was the hardest part and the easiest
Okay.
part of doing this healing journey?
Um, I mean, I looked forward to meeting with you I'm still meeting with you, let's be honest, but I would look forward to our meeting. And so, hardest part was starting, which they say that about going to the gym. It sucks waking up when you get there, you're like, God, I'm glad I did that. So I think like taking the leap and actually just signing up and doing it uh, was probably the hardest thing, and it's gonna be for most people because starting something new is scary. There's the unknown, you don't know what's on the other side. But if you're to the point of like I was, or even, a little bit better, a little bit worse, whatever the case may be, I think you have to remind yourself, like, it's scarier to keep going on like this. And that would just be kind of like advice, but then, again, just sharing the hardest thing. The easiest part for me, honestly, like, I really enjoy a lot of the actual tools and things like that, and I think as I got better, I was able to do more and more and more, like, and you have a progressive method as well, and so we started really, really simple because I think, based on my intake and based on where I was at, like, you knew if you gave me 18 tools, I would just right? I would just, like, avoid it because I was already doing that. That was already part of it. And we started very, very simple. We did the tapping, on the calls, which was really, really nice because doing it again the first time with someone made it less scary, made it easier to do again and again and again because you immediately feel better.
Mhm.
And so I'd say that really implementing the tools, once I got to that point where I was like building, like I look forward to it every
Yeah, that's the momentum part. And I think, there's so many free tools out there. Like you can access a lot of different things from YouTube to apps. Uh, Like many people, I myself have downloaded every health app and meditation app and tapping app and all of that. And that, if that is a thing that you resonate with, it's an amazing option. It's very
Yeah.
accessible, low cost, all of that. But having something customized to you and done real time where you have that accountability to show
Yeah.
up, to go through it and then get that ball rolling, like you said, getting started is the hardest part. And that is why the accountability and the coaching and the therapy piece is so vital. And I think a lot of people have tried to do things on their own so many times and failed. And so they think it's not going to work. But if you haven't had that piece where someone's like literally laying out one step at a time for you of
Mhm.
take this step. And if you feel like you can't, here's the tool to get you to take that step. When I look at the numbers, and I've done this so long, I know exactly how much to give people where it doesn't overload them and go backwards. And that's a huge part of the issue in the coaching space too, is people are just like, no pain, no gain, like harder is better, do all the things. And they just keep adding more and more. And if somebody's traumatized, overwhelmed, shut down, disassociated, like I can't give them a 2 hour routine to do. Like it
Uh,
has to be like that. But that's also why, again, I'm obsessed with this work is because the sessions are 30 minutes. That's pretty doable by itself. But then the tools literally take a minute or two a day collectively. And people are blown away that so much change can happen from such little time.
Yeah, and I think for me, we found like we worked together because you asked the questions, like if I would miss something or I couldn't add something. The accountability piece was huge because you would ask me questions and then we figured out how together that it would best work. in my schedule because I am extremely busy. I have 9 million things going on at all times. And we found that being in the sauna was the best time to do that. I was alone, there wasn't distractions, all that kind of stuff. And then I'd say, you know, really the other thing to kind of go along with that is I have a graveyard of self-help books. I mean, truly, it's embarrassing. I mean, I hate the trees that lost their lives for those books that never got used. I mean, seriously. So, I mean, I think I have 80 books that I've workbooks, whatever, and I would get on, and this is all before we started working together, and I would fill out like the first page and then would lose it or, just never go back to it. So for me with this, just because obviously it's a pattern in my life that this hasn't been a priority for me, adding something new is really hard to do without accountability. And this kind of mirrors almost like a what do you call it? Not group fitness, but personal trainer type. My goals are this. This is what I'm trying to do. I'm gonna hold you accountable for your diet but you still show up together and then, you have a plan until you meet again. And so I think the accountability is extremely important for anybody that hasn't done something like this before because it's very easy to quit a self-help book that no one knows that you actually bought.
Yeah. Yeah.
I need a coach for this. And something for me too, and this may resonate with if you're a CEO or a leader or mom or whatever the case may be. I'm everyone else's coach. Like at the end of the day, like I'm the coach for my kids. I'm the coach, honestly, even a lot of the times for my relationship. I have my staff. I have those that I lead. And I'm everyone else's coach. And I remember one of my friends said to me years ago, and it was actually, I had had a very traumatic miscarriage in 2020 and just very, very hard time for me. And I remember one of my friends said to me, and gosh, that was 4 years ago. And it took, that long. But I remember she said to me, who's there for Allison? Like, who's coaching Allison? And the
Yeah.
answer was like, nobody, because there was nobody, because I hadn't met you, that knew how to do that.
Yeah.
I'm a tough cookie to crack. I'm not gonna lie. So, but that was kind of like the first time that I've thought about it. And yes, I went through something very traumatic, but also this friend had identified that in other ways because she had known me for several years. I think if you can't answer the question, who's coaching me? I mean, that's a surefire sign that you need somebody in your corner,
Yeah.
because how do we show up for everyone else when you're that lonely in help with all the things that happen with daily life, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah, 100%. And this conversation is so perfect because it gives like the real life version of what it's like to experience these things. And then it gives me the opportunity to kind of explain what's happening. And with that specifically, that is kind of a trauma response of hyper independence. I've
Yeah.
nobody's been there for me. It's not been safe to rely on other people. I have to do it
Yeah.
all. And that actually fuels a lot of our
Yeah.
success in the career space. It makes us great healers, leaders, teachers. It was my response. But, like, I talk a lot about just, last week I flew out to California to spend an entire day with my mentor and my coach, and I have mentors and coaches for all these different areas of my life. And I think the more you grow and succeed in life and kind of have that forward-facing trajectory, the more
Mm.
you realize, like, there is only so much I can do by myself. Like, I am not a unit of
Yeah.
one, and if I try to be, then it's gonna end very badly. So getting that support and realizing it's the smartest thing you can do to amplify your impact and your progress and the things that you do wanna do to give, to serve, to grow, to take care of everybody, but you can do that 1,000 times better when you let someone give that to you as well. So,
Absolutely.
final closing question, I want you to think about, like, if somebody's listening to this, they're just all the things are resonating, they're like, "I'm stressed, I'm probably a 200 on that list that Holly mentions." What would you tell someone who's in your shoes at some point in your journey where maybe you considered doing something like this or you weren't sure you needed it and they're hesitant, they're on the fence, they're like, I don't know if this is going to work for me. I feel too busy. I can't add it. I've tried all the things. I've done all the self help books. Like, I don't know. They're just not sure. What would you tell them being in that space?
Yeah. I mean, I think that being not sure about something that you know that you need is essentially was a lot of my problem. It's almost a way of avoidance because, again, it's kind of like a protection mechanism. Like your body doesn't want to feel the feelings. And I think my advice is yes, you do go back down memory lane and are typing out and talking about all these things that happen, but it's a very proactive program. And for me, I like to be proactive. I always say I like to work on my business, not in my business. And what's neat about this is you're really working on something. You're not working in the trauma. I don't I don't know if that makes sense, but
Yeah.
that's the best way I think I can describe it because my perception of therapy I mean, I'm going to be 38 in like 2 months, but for so many years was, oh, I'm just going to work in this web of problems. I
Yeah.
mean, that's really what it felt like. And again, probably a defense mechanism for me, right? And so I chose to block things out and block things out and block things out, which got me where I'm at, when we started. But that's not what you're just not doing that. You're not working in your problems. You're working on yourself. And we talk so much about self-care and, some of the posts I see online are just, such BS. Like you can't just put a face mask on and grab a bottle of wine and things are going to be peachy.
Yeah.
Please know I did that for a very long time. But self-care
Yeah.
is actually working on yourself so that you can show up in your life the way that you need to. And if you're on the fence and you feel like you're not doing that every single day, or you're not extremely clear every single day, you're not able to be fully present. And being fully present, it just doesn't mean that you flip your cell phone over. That's not actually the definition of that, in my opinion.
Yeah.
It's actually like mentally not going to these like dark places. And that's what I would do. Like if I had a calm moment where I things thought that things weren't crazy, I would just go to like the mistake I made in 7th grade, that I couldn't let myself fully just enjoy something, which is
Yeah.
really sad to live life that way.
Yeah.
So I think that like just getting on a discovery call with you and on those like I was able to say some things out loud that immediately gave me it made me feel a little bit better. And then just the explanation for that gave me an answer. And then all the rest of the work was working on myself.
Yeah.
So I know that was a long-winded answer for that, but that's truly the way that I feel and the way that um, that I would truly direct anybody going through anything,
Wow.
even if you think it's like not a big deal because someone told you that, if your body is like telling you to do something about it, then that's a cry for help and you seriously need to answer that. So if you're even
Yeah.
considering it, something somewhere somehow made you feel like you needed this and you need to listen to yourself for once because the reason that you're here is probably because you haven't been listening to yourself.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. No, it was a beautiful summary, and I so appreciate that because, like you said, everyone just pushes, pushes, pushes forward. And I know I've said this to you. I say it to all of my clients. Emotions buried alive always come back to life. We think by pushing
Yeah.
through and avoiding that it goes away. And for a while in our 20s, oftentimes that works. And
Yeah.
then in our 30s, it starts catching up. And then our body starts breaking down and more things surface because that bucket gets more and more overflowing. And there has to be a breaking point. And like you said, the sooner you can make that decision, the sooner you can start healing. And like the next 10 years, the next 20, 30, 40 years of your life can be completely different. And it doesn't have to be so messy where you spend 10 years in therapy because you had so much trauma and you're just like, I don't have time for that. Who has time for that? 30 minutes, you bring it to the surface, you heal it and release it, and then you create completely new pathways and changes going forward. And I
Yeah.
think that's what people need. And that's why I created this whole process. That's what
Yeah.
I needed. I didn't have time to spend 5 decades in 2 hour therapy sessions just talking about my problems. That didn't resonate for me. So I
Yeah.
love that you highlighted that because I just think a lot of people are going to resonate with that. Well, are there
So,
any final closing words or thoughts or anything that you want to share from your journey to anyone or just anything that you want to say? I want to just give one final
yeah.
open space. And yeah, I've just loved this conversation.
Yeah, good. The only thing I would just add is, I mean, I think the way, and we're still working through things, and I plan to for a while because this is now, I've decided a huge priority in my life because the more that I do, the better that I'll get. Same thing, if you work, the more you work out, the more in shape you're going to be.
Yeah.
And it's just very, very like calming to feel that I can really be 100% in charge of my life when I'm showing up for things like this. And I don't know that people look this in that way. So that's why I wanted to bring it up. I mean, we all say that if we set boundaries, then we're in charge of our life and all that kind of stuff. And I just think so much of what we see is such BS. It really just is when you actually break it down and look at it the way that you do from a neurological standpoint and all of those things. And I can feel it. My productivity this week is, I mean, I really just don't even know how I've done all of the things, but it seems so simple. And I feel like I'm really able to get in flow state much easier, which, if you do a little bit of research on that, that's really where your body is truly like enjoying what you're doing.
Yeah.
And I can't imagine that anybody listening to this would want to go through their lives not enjoying what they're doing. That just seems so silly, right? And I mean, define, what you're enjoying, define how you're enjoying it, right? Does that mean you're smiling or does that mean that your mind's not going to other places? And if it is, 9 times out of 10, like you have some work to do. But just a level of clarity from so many standpoints and like my genuine mood is completely different. I have not felt, I don't even know the last time that I've felt the way that I feel right now. I've really, maybe back in high school. I don't know. Yeah. It's been a really, really long time. And so that would be the last thing I'd say that I don't think I touched on is just like the level of actual true clarity. Not, I read a post on Instagram and that hit me. And so I sent it to my, like, I just think that it's so important to like redefine all of those things and like actually sit with it for 2 seconds.
Yeah.
I think we feed ourselves so many lies within a day. And with social media, it's so easy to just validate and label ourselves. And it can be good, right? In some ways, because how you talk to yourself and how you label yourself is, kind of how you'll show up. But that's not just it. There's so much, under the surface, under labeling, under validation
Yeah.
that will help you move forward, not just feel like, oh, I'm just this way and this is how I am for the rest of my life. That's
Mm.
so silly because we're always evolving, we're always changing. So is the
Yeah.
world. And I think that the last thing I'll say is I've realized that I've created the majority of my problem. And that has really allowed me, not that I ever had a victim mentality, because I wouldn't say that that is something that I experienced, but I just realizing that I caused a lot of my problem also makes me feel so much more in control of my life. And I feel like I truly am able to define my future. And I'm choosing for my future to look very bright, but I'm actually able to move in that manner.
Mm.
So it's not just about, again, going back through and, identifying traumas. It's truly about like, what does your dream life look like and getting as close to that as possible. And so I couldn't, be any happier. And I can't wait to continue to work on things because if this is just me coming very much a little bit outside of the dark side,
Yeah.
then I can't imagine what the very bright like. Cause I don't even think I'm there yet,
Yeah.
And
Wow.
and it happened very quickly. What like I think we talked yesterday, like 100 days or something like that. And
Yeah.
that's pretty quick for the level that I was at. It was not good. It was
Yeah.
not. So
Yeah.
that would be the only other thing, that I'd say. And just don't like you don't get time back. Time doesn't magically come back once it's gone. And you're losing time every second that you're living in just this unclear world.
Yeah.
So just always, I just tell everyone that. And it's something I truly believe. So don't waste time.
Yeah.
Like throwing it in the garbage can is the worst thing you can do for yourself.
Yeah.
So
The trauma's not going to naturally resolve itself and just start. You're not going to wake up one day and be like, today is the day that I'm going to mindset myself out of this or that my body's just going to let it all go. Like it takes
Yeah.
that intentionality, it takes that structure
Yeah.
and that program and that progressive change. Yeah, it's like if you
Yeah.
have a problem, you have to use the right tool, and there's so many tools, like you said, I wouldn't
Yeah.
100% agree with you. It's just BS out there. Our idea of self-care, our idea of that we need to
Mhm.
go heal our trauma by talking about it for a million years, it's
Yeah.
all distorted. And I spent like hundreds of thousands of dollars and many, many years going in circles. And so have so many people that I've worked with. And it's like there are tools that work, but they need to be done in the right way in a sequence
Yeah.
and a process. And that's what this whole thing is about. So thank you so much. I love just getting to step back out of the actual session role and just see and celebrate your healing and the growth and
Mhm.
work that you've put in. I want to just acknowledge you for that. That's like one of my favorite things to do in the work, but also here and now is to just say, like, you've really shown up for yourself and you've
Yeah.
taken charge of things in a powerful way. And I love it. And you are so right. It is just the beginning. It is
Yeah.
just the beginning of rewiring and laying down a whole new foundation. To the moon and back is like where you're going. So thank you
Yeah.
so
Of
much for your time. Thank you everyone for
course.
tuning in. And that is all for now.
Thank you.